2022 was a pretty great year for games. It was bookended by two heavy hitters in Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok, but there were plenty of smaller gems along the way. Before we jump into my favorites of the year, I want to give a quick shout out to a few games that I played for the first time in 2022, even if they originally released before that. This one came out of nowhere. I don't play fighting games, I find them intimidating, and I just don't have the patience to learn how to play them. But some people on my timeline kept talking about this game, and the frankly stunning anime aesthetic won me over instantly. So when I bought Guilty Gear Strive, I told myself I was going to make an honest effort to learn it. And that's what I did. I made it all the way to floor 8 of the online mode. I don't know if that's impressive, definitely not to people who actually play these games on a regular basis, but it felt like an accomplishment to me. Moving up a floor feels great, getting kicked back down to the previous floor sucks. Moving back up again is a nice confidence boost. It's a great loop. For now, I kind of feel like I've gone as far as I can. But who knows? I'll definitely be playing more in the future. I made a whole video just about Resident Evil 2 and how much I love that game. Maybe you'd like to go watch it after finishing this one. So I won't say too much here, but 2022 is the year when I fully embraced Resident Evil. I played Village, 3 Remake, 4, and 7. Weird order, I know, and loved them all. This series finds a wonderful balance between serious and silly that's hard to pull off, and regardless of where each game falls on that scale, they're always a ton of fun. Obvious statement is obvious, but Resident Evil is awesome. I'd never even heard of this game until it showed up as one of the monthly PlayStation Plus games. In Tome, you use photography to solve puzzles. The stakes are low and the vibes are cozy. If you're looking for a relaxing way to spend an afternoon, check it out. It's great. Okay, now on to my favorite games of the year. Featuring tense turn-based strategy battles and a story about war between 3 nations, Triangle Strategy feels like a beginner-friendly version of Final Fantasy Tactics, one of my favorite games ever. It does have its own identity though, mainly through its decision-making system. At certain points of the story, your party members will vote on how to handle the situation at hand. You have the opportunity to talk to them beforehand and potentially sway some opinions, but you don't have complete control. In my playthrough, votes usually went how I wanted them to, but not always. At one point, for example, I wanted to lend aid to a village that was under attack by bandits, but my party overruled me and instead chose to return home and check in with our lord. In general, I don't like branching story paths because they make everything feel kind of cheap. If I don't like my outcome, I can just reload and make different decisions. But the fact that your allies have a degree of agency helps these choices to feel meaningful. The characters are easy to care about too. The relationship between the two leads, Serenoa and Frederica, feels earned. And I have to give a special shout out to Anna the Stealth Assassin. She can attack twice per turn, throw poison, and even turn invisible to sneak past enemies and gank them from behind. Yeah, she's pretty cool. The plot is full of interesting twists that kept me engaged until the end. And while there are multiple endings including a true ending, I was satisfied with the bittersweet conclusion that my choices led to. Triangle Strategy may have been inspired by it, but Tactics Ogre literally is the predecessor to Final Fantasy Tactics. Created by the legendary Yasumi Matsuno, absolutely one of the greatest video game storytellers ever, and if you think that's hyperbole, you've clearly never played Tactics, or Vagrant Story for that matter. This game lays the foundation for everything that would make FF Tactics such a masterpiece. A world with a rich history, a host of mortally grey characters, some genuinely surprising twists, and tough-as-nails strategy battles that feel truly rewarding to win. It's all here. Tactics Ogre kicked my ass to the point that I questioned if I was even going to be able to finish it. But that challenge serves to build animosity towards the game's villains. When I finally did vanquish my foes, I felt triumphant. Although it's a remaster of an old classic, Tactics Ogre Reborn is more than a cool history lesson. It's an excellent game, worthy of the time it demands of you. Between Persona, Yakuza, The World Ends With You, and others, Tokyo is a popular setting these days. What sets Ghostwire apart is its lonely, spooky ambiance. Piles of clothing left in rainy streets and phones still displaying the last message sent out are all that's left of the city's population. Typically, you don't want an open world to feel empty, but it works in Ghostwire's favor to build that sense of solitude and isolation. You'll get help from some furry friends, but otherwise protagonist Akito and his spirit companion KK are on their own as they face various supernatural threats taken from Japanese folklore and urban myths. Combat is unfortunately kind of weak. There's just not enough depth or variety to remain exciting, but my god, those animations are so sick that they almost make up for it. Ripping out an enemy's core looks so cool and feels so great on the PS5 controller that you never get bored of doing it. So while it has some rough edges, a cool setting, strong sense of atmosphere, and gorgeous aesthetic take Ghostwire Tokyo pretty far. Final Fantasy VII has been my favorite game since I was 9 years old, but I never had a PSP, so I missed out on Crisis Core until now. I watched all the cutscenes on YouTube years ago, so I had an idea of what to expect going in, but actually playing the game and seeing everything in context hits so much harder. This remaster/remake brings significant upgrades to the graphics and gameplay, so Reunion looks and plays far better than a 15-year-old handheld game should. The story gets weird and wonky at times. I'm not a huge fan of how they shoehorn new characters into crucial moments from the original game, but for me, excellent character work will always overcome everything else. There are some great moments with younger versions of Cloud, Tifa, Sephiroth, and especially Aerith, but Zack is the star of the show. He's a big, dumb, golden retriever of a man who just runs around with endless energy and enthusiasm, looking to help those around him. Ultimate himbo vibes. He's such a pure soul that it's impossible not to love him, and watching his story play out hits all the right notes. Tunic wears its Zelda influence on its sleeve, and if it was just a Zelda-inspired hack-and-slash adventure, it would still be a really solid game. But two things really set it apart. First, the soundtrack is wonderful. It's this delicate electronic music that strikes the perfect balance between soothing and mysterious. Second is the in-game old-school NES-style instruction manual that serves as a tutorial, map, objective marker, and storytelling device, all rolled into one. As you explore the world of Tunic, you'll discover the lost pages of this manual. Some of them explain basic gameplay mechanics, others tell you where to find certain items, and still others shed light on the game's cryptic story. There are tons of secrets to find too, either hidden in the beautiful illustrations, or even scribbled in the margins. Scouring every page trying to decipher the game's mysteries brought me back to my childhood. I had the Brady Games strategy guide for Final Fantasy VII, and I studied that thing obsessively until the pages literally fell out. I just had to know every minute detail about that game, and Tunic manages to bottle that same magical feeling. It's awesome. If there's one thing Stray needed to nail, it was the feeling of being a cat. Thankfully, it succeeds. Tight traversal mechanics capture the sure-footedness that felines are famous for. So many delightful moments come from those classic cat behaviors, like scratching rugs, knocking things off shelves, curling up and taking a nap, or walking across the keyboard. Press circle to meow is the best button prompt of the year, so it's clear that this game was made by people who love cats, and as a cat lover myself, it's a joy to experience. And while the charm of being a cat is a big part of Stray's appeal, that's not the only string to its bow. This isn't a platformer, it's an adventure game about making your way through a dystopian city, interacting with its residents, and solving light puzzles. The neon-drenched streets of the slums in Midtown are beautiful and a lot of fun to explore, packed with charming characters and little curiosities to discover. Though simple, the world and story are rich with wonder, mystery, danger, and sorrow, punctuated by an excellent soundtrack, really awesome blippy electronic vibes. Stray is a short, cozy game with a big heart. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like Sifu. Like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, it's a punishing experience that demands you pay attention, learn attack patterns, and respond with lightning-fast reactions. It's all about rhythm, ducking and weaving through enemy attacks with precise timing. I struggled to get to grips with it for a while, and even considered throwing in the towel, especially when I hit the difficulty spike that comes in the second level. But Sifu has this amazing way of presenting what seems like an impossible challenge, only for it to suddenly become very reasonable once you work out a pattern or two. I don't consider myself to be good at video games, but I can be persistent, and Sifu's rhythm-based dodging feels so good that it gives you a huge boost of encouragement every time you duck under a punch or step over a sweep. Going from, how am I possibly going to do this, to, I just wiped the floor with this dude who used to wipe the floor with me, is an immensely satisfying process. Overall, Sifu has a bit of everything: rewarding combat, creative level design, and a slick aesthetic, all tied together by a cool story about revenge and enlightenment. I'm glad I gave it a chance. Prior to 2018, I didn't care about God of War. I never played the PS2 games, but I did snag God of War 3 for like $10 in a PSN sale at some point. It was a fun time with cool combat and over-the-top set pieces, but Kratos was such a boring character. He's just a loud, angry man brutally murdering everything that moves. Like, whatever. God of War's Norse saga completely changed my perspective on him and the series as a whole. It maintains the awesome action and spectacle of the original titles. Combat feels amazing, it's just so crunchy, and both the Leviathan Axe and Blades of Chaos are among my favorite video game weapons to use. But where the new God of War truly excels is characterization. Taking that pissed off god killer and transforming him into a relatable, believable, likable human character is no small feat. Maybe I'm still in the honeymoon phase with this game, but from where I stand right now, Kratos' character arc is one of the best I've ever seen. I didn't give a shit about him. Now I love him. Ragnarok isn't perfect. No game is. And I don't think it quite matches the magic of God of War 2018, but it's a wild ride that's consistently surprising and ultimately satisfying. It's hard to imagine a stronger end to this story. Elden Ring is good at a lot of things. It's a FromSoft game, so obviously it has some of the sickest bosses around, tons of build variety, deep lore, and awe-inspiring art direction. But its strongest aspect is level design. You know you're playing a great open-world game when you set an objective, but find yourself constantly distracted by other things you stumble across along the way. There's this wonderful moment when you leave Stormvale Castle through the back gate and walk out onto a stunning vista of Liurnia of the Lakes, the game's next main zone. As you scan the horizon, there are forests, rugged cliffsides, and a huge swamp, dotted with castles, towers, camps, and ruins. It's almost too much to take in at once. How am I supposed to decide where to go? I want to see it all. And as you make your way toward any destination, you'll inevitably come across other oddities that you didn't even notice at first. The magic of Elden Ring is that wherever you go, you're always glad you went there. Maybe you got a cool item or met a weird NPC. Probably you got killed by some horrifying creature. But the true reward is the experience of exploring that catacomb or underground river or decaying hellscape or whatever, because it's all so much fun. Elden Ring joins the likes of Breath of the Wild, Red Dead Redemption 2, and the Yakuza series in the best open worlds club, and it'll remain a reference point for excellence in open world level design for years to come. So yeah, 2022 was good. But now it's time to look forward, and every once in a while the stars align and we get an amazing year full of bangers. 2017 and 2020 were just that, and 2023 is shaping up to be something special too. With the likes of Final Fantasy XVI, Zelda, Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man 2, and hopefully Hollow Knight Silksong, just to name a few, there's a lot to be excited for next year.